It is June the 14th, 2025, and I hope everybody's been having a wonderful day so far today. I hope everybody's been having a wonderful weekend as well. It has been raining here all day today, and it finally stopped. I am hoping that I can get to this video filmed today without getting any more rain. I've tried to come out here and film today's video all day since this morning. I came out here first thing this morning, tried filming, and it started pouring raining on me. I came out here midday and tried filming. It started pouring raining on me. I came out this afternoon, tried filming. It started pouring raining on me. And I came out here just about 30 minutes ago and sat down at the table. And as soon as I sat down at the table, it just the sky just came out. And I went inside and was like, I've got to figure something out. And I was about to film inside, but I think that it's finally quit, at least for now. Let's hope. But anyway, what I wanted to talk about today is another one of those great reasons why you're not drinking today. And what that is no more hangovers. Because I'll tell you what, the hangovers, golly, that is one thing I do not miss at all. The hangovers for me used to be something that, I mean, it would totally ruin my whole entire day. And the hangovers as well were another reason that I could never get or stay sober. Because once I discovered the hair of the dog, that was all she wrote. You know, I use hair of the dog every single morning when I woke up. I used to, like, I would deal with the hangover. You know, I'd get some Gatorade, maybe take a couple of ibuprofen, and just kind of wait it out. But one day, I decided to have a beer that morning. And that was one of those things that I always told myself, you know, I'm never going to do. I will never be the type of person who wakes up and has a drink in the morning. And I always told myself that as long as I never took it to that point, then I didn't have a problem. Well, one day, like I said, I woke up in the morning and decided to drink a beer because I was that bad off. And before you know it, the hangover went away. Now, the one thing about drinking in the morning is the hangover doesn't really technically just go away straight away. You know, all we do is start getting back intoxicated again. But man, it works. And like I said, I used to do it every single day because it worked so well. And, you know, once that started to happen, it just became a daily habit. And it's one of those things, too, where, you know, until you do it and you break the ice, it's one of those things where you're like, you know, you keep telling yourself, I'm never going to do that, I'm never going to do that. And then the day it happens, it's like you've broken the seal. And it's like, well, I did it now, so whatever. And before you know it, you know, years have passed. And you realize one day, like, oh my gosh, I've been waking up every single morning drinking for like the past 5 years. You know, that's 365 days in a year times 5. I mean, we're talking about a lot of time that's gone by. And it can happen like that before you know it. Years have passed by, like I said, and thousands of days have passed by that you've been drinking every single day in the morning because that cycle has started. But back to the topic of today, you know, like I said, is that we don't have to deal with the hangovers anymore. And, man, I'll tell you what, the hangovers used to be something for me that, you know, like, it was, like, the worst part about the drinking. I just found this really neat-looking mushroom. Hold on. That is so cool looking right there. The colors on it. And there's another little one right there. I just think that is just the coolest thing in the world. I don't want to take away from today's video, but I just saw that mushroom there. I just thought it was really neat. But the hangovers, like I said, you know, it was like the worst part for me because I used to get really, 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 really bad hangovers. You know, every single morning when I was hungover, you know, I would feel like I was going to throw up. And it wasn't until you know, one day I finally just stuck my finger down my throat because I couldn't deal with the nausea anymore. I used to just lay there and deal with it, you know, and I would take every kind of remedy I could think of, ginger ale and ginger candy and all kinds of stuff like that, and hold it down all day long because I hated throwing up that much. And just like waking up one morning and having a drink, one morning I decided to stick my finger down my throat because I just couldn't deal with the nausea anymore. And when I did that, I threw up. All of a sudden I felt better, and that started a cycle too. I guess just like anything else, I became like kind of addicted to it, and it became part of my routine. So it became this habit to where, I'd wake up first thing in the morning. The first thing I do is go grab myself a beer out of the refrigerator or make myself a drink, grab a couple of ibuprofen, throw those in my pocket, and then I went straight downstairs to the bathroom down there and just threw up. Like the first thing I did in the morning. And, for the first, I don't know how many times, I had to stick my finger down my throat every single time I had to throw up. But then it got to the point where I didn't even have to even do that anymore. I just leaned over the toilet and it just came out, no problem at all. Here's another really cool mushroom right here. Look at this one. That's really neat. Anyway, I'm not on like a mushroom hunt right now. We've had so much rain here recently that we're getting all kinds of mushrooms. There's another huge one right here. Well, I'm not going to get that one. Anyway, like I said, all the rain that we've had, all the mushrooms are starting to come up. But, what was I talking about again? Like I said, it got to the point where I didn't even have to stick my finger down my throat anymore. I just leaned over the toilet, and next thing you know, I threw up, and it became a daily habit. I woke up every single morning and just went straight downstairs and threw up. And after I threw up, I would drink my beer or my mixed drink and slam those ibuprofen and go ahead and get started for my day. And it was off to the races. Here I am drinking 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. And by the time I got to work, I was feeling pretty good. The hangover pretty much would start to go away. Now, there were a lot of times that it didn't matter. I could try to have a drink, take ibuprofen. I try all my little tips and tricks and, little remedies that I had to get through a hangover, and sometimes they didn't work at all. My whole entire day would just be ruined. I remember going to work a bunch of times, and, like I said, I used to work in a club, and we were also a bed and breakfast. There were times that I would go lay down in one of the rooms because I felt so bad, because I had to be at work. So I'd get through the lunch rush or whatever, and then I would just go to one of the rooms and lay down for a couple of hours because I had to be there for the dinner shift. And I had to get like a little bit of lay down time because I felt that bad. I mean, there were days when I woke up in the morning and I thought, like, this might be my last day. Like, I don't even know if I'm going to live through this. The hangovers would be that bad. And that's my point of today's video. You don't have to worry about dealing with those hangovers anymore, because they can be horrible. And I know that you guys can relate to what I'm talking about, because if you've ever drank, then you've dealt with a hangover, and you know what a hangover feels like, and you know how it can ruin your whole entire day. Heck, sometimes a hangover can ruin your week. I mean, they can make everything bad. Because let's say you're off on Saturday and Sunday, and you had a bunch of plans of stuff that you were supposed to get done on that weekend, and you go out Friday night and stay up until 7 o'clock in the morning drinking and doing who knows what else. Your entire weekend's ruined. You're not doing anything that weekend. You're going to be laying in the bed sleeping or laying on your couch watching television the rest of the weekend. And I can't tell you how many, not weekends, but like days off, or if I had a weekend off. Because I rarely got weekends off. So if I did get a weekend off, if we weren't out of town, like, we had stuff that we planned on getting done. We had projects that we needed to get accomplished. Something, spring cleaning that needed to get done, or the sink needed to be fixed, or whatever. And that Friday night, I would get wasted drunk, and then I couldn't get anything accomplished. Nothing. I didn't do anything. I just laid around the whole entire weekend and watched TV. And when we get sober, every single moment that we have is precious, and we can, utilize all of our time and, actually be productive, proactive, and just get things done. We can get so much more stuff done when we're sober and we're not drinking. Yeah, it's just thinking back to when I was in active addiction, and like when I used to live in my old neighborhood, just talking about this right now just brings back a lot of memories from back then. I'd be hanging out with all of my neighbors on Friday night after getting off work and standing around and listening to all of the projects that those guys had that they had planned for the weekend. Here we are, it's 2-3 o'clock in the morning, and we're standing outside of my garage or one of their garages, wasted drunk. We're all bumping into stuff, we're weaving back and forth as we're having a conversation. We're talking nonsense, and like I said, here we are, 2, 3, 4, 5, who knows what time in the morning it is that we're standing there talking about, oh yeah, I'm gonna rebuild my fence this weekend, and I'm gonna build these raised garden beds, and I'm gonna, redo my flooring in my kitchen, and I'm gonna redo my bathroom. And the next, they went to the home improvement store that Friday and picked up all the stuff, and guess where that stuff sat all weekend long? In their driveway or in their garage, and didn't move an inch that whole entire weekend. Like I said, just thinking back to those times and like remembering all these conversations that I would have with my neighbors and all these projects that everybody had planned for the weekend that took months to get done. Or I even knew somebody that for years, and they probably still have the same flooring sitting in their garage right now that they were supposed to get done like 15 years ago. And it all started on one weekend. They went and bought all the flooring and everything one weekend and got wasted drunk that weekend, and it just never got done. And all kinds of stuff took precedence over it, over the years. There's other things that come up because stuff comes up, and it just never got done. And that's my point that I'm talking about this today, is that we can just get so much more accomplished when we're sober. We're not hungover all the time. We're not wasting time laying in our bed or laying on our couch or whatever it is that you do when you're hungover. We can get so much more stuff done. The sky is literally the limit when we're sober. And not to mention all the things that we can get done and get fixed, all the things that we can clean. I mean, just not even just like organizing your closet or whatever, but organizing your life, and getting things back in order. And not just that, but like all the things, the fun things that we can start doing again. We're not wasting our whole entire weekend laying around in the bed when we could be out doing something fun. Think about whatever it is on your bucket list that you've had, something that you've always wanted to do throughout your life that you never got accomplished, something that you never got to check off your bucket list because you always felt like crap. Something that you've always wanted to do. You could go do it now if you haven't already done it. And I'm sure there are many of you on here that started checking those things off of your bucket list after you got sober, because now you actually have the time and the energy to get those things accomplished, to get out there in the world and live your life. Because when we're in active addiction, we're not living. We're just not living our lives. I wasted away so much of my life laying around because I felt so bad. And not just laying around because I felt bad. It started that I was laying there because I felt bad. But before you know it, as I was laying there in the morning, I started getting intoxicated because I had to have the hair of the dog to get through my hangover. And then at 11 o'clock in the morning, there I am, wasted drunk. My whole entire day was ruined. And if I had 2 days off in a row, both of those days got ruined because I was hungover, because I got drunk the night before. I never could just stay sober. Something I don't ever talk about, and I don't think I've ever spoken about it on here before, but even when my kids were born, I was hungover at the hospital when my children were born. I was hungover. I couldn't even go to the birth of my own child without drinking the night before. I'll never forget when my daughter was born, the night before, because she was born My wife went into labor. They had an what I can't remember what they call that. Induce her. They had to induce her labor like the morning of. She didn't have my daughter until like the next morning. My wife was in labor for like 24 hours or something like that. But we had to be at the hospital at like 5 a.m. That morning. And that morning, here I was standing out in the front yard throwing up before we got into the vehicle to go to the hospital because I was hungover. I got drunk that night. And I know what I was drinking. I was drinking margaritas. The birth of my first child, I got wasted drunk the night before and was hungover that day. And I'll never forget going to the hospital. I smelled so bad because I was hungover that morning and I forgot to put deodorant on before we went to the hospital. And I smelled like BO the whole entire day while we were at the hospital and my wife was in labor. Because I was hungover. And that's what I'm talking about today. It's just so many things in our life straighten out after we get sober, but one of the best things about it is not dealing with the hangovers anymore. And when we're not hungover every single day, just the productivity that we have and the amount of stuff that we can get accomplished and just the way our lives improve so much, and not just, how productive we can be and all the stuff that we can get done, but your mood is so much better. You don't feel like dog crap. I mean, it's as simple as that, but you don't. When you're feeling good, you're going to be in a better mood, which, when you're in a better mood, the people around you are going to be in a better mood because they don't feel like they're walking around on eggshells when they're around you. Because I know that people used to feel like that with me. People have told me now that I've been sober that when I was in active addiction, that when I was hungover in the mornings, that they walked around on eggshells around me because I would snap at people. I felt so bad. I was always in a bad mood. So not only is it going to affect your life in a positive way, but it's going to affect everybody else's lives around you in a positive way because you don't feel bad. You're going to be in a better mood, which is going to mean the people around you are not going to be in a bad mood because you're not biting their heads off. And it's a trickle-down effect, and it all starts with you. Then everybody around you starts feeling better and everybody else around you is in a better mood. And especially if you are, a supervisor or in a position of authority, those people look up to you. And if, every single day that you're at work and you're you're the boss of a lot of people and, they're looking up to you and they're looking for direction from you. And if the first thing they see every single day when you walk in the door is an attitude, or you look like, you feel bad, or you look like you're in a bad mood, first of all, people are going to be afraid to approach you. And it might be the difference in, something really big, where somebody might be afraid to come to you with a problem or come to you and approach you with something and ask you a simple question that, later on down the road might lead to a big disaster because someone was afraid to ask you something and they might feel like it's a stupid question, so they're not going to ask it because they're, like I said, they're afraid that if they come to you with it, that you might chew their head off. So they're like, there's no way I'm going to ask them this question. They're just going to think that it's a stupid question. They're going to say, why did you ask me this? And bug me with that. So I'm not going to ask it. And then the next thing you know, some huge problem happens at your job because they didn't ask that simple question. So like I said, this has a huge trickle-down effect. Just you not being hungover every day is not only going to affect your life in a positive way, but it's going to affect everyone around you's life in a positive way as well. It's going to make your work life better. Your relationships are going to be better. Just everything's going to be better because you're not hungover all the time. Last but not least, the one thing that I will tell you has saved me so much money is that since I quit drinking and I'm sober now and I know for you guys as well, and I'm sure that there are so many of you out there that are going to be able to relate to what I'm talking about right now, is that you don't have to worry about buying those care packages every morning on your way into work. You know, you're driving into work that morning and you feel absolutely horrible, and you got to stop because you've got a headache, because you forgot to take Advil before you left, because you're already rushing out of the house because you felt so bad. You know, you slept as long as you possibly could. Your alarm, you hit snooze on the alarm 20 times, and by the time that you finally made it out of the door, you know, you've got 20 minutes to make it work, and it takes 20 minutes to get there, and you're rushing. But you have to stop by the gas station because you know that you can't go to the gas station or by the store after you get to work, so you're going to be late. So there you are, you're going to be late to work for the 10th time in the past 6 months. Your boss has already talked to you about it. You know, but you had to get that little bit of extra sleep because you felt so bad. And then you got to stop by the gas station and you've got to get your Monster energy drink or your Red Bull. And then you got to buy a pack of Goody Powder, or you need to pick up some Advil because you forgot to take it before you left the house. And you, of course, you've got to buy the little pack of Advil that has 4 in it, but it costs $4.99 for 4 Advil. And you got to get some cigarettes or your Zens, and you got to get some dip. And you need this and that and a pack of candy, or you need some Snickers bar, Reese's peanut butter cups, because every time you're hungover, that's what you got to have. Or you got to get your gas station soda pop, and you got to get the Big Gulp and all this kind of stuff. And before you know it, you're walking out of the gas station with $40 worth of stuff in your little grocery bag because you needed your care package just to be able to make it through work that day. And in your mind, you're thinking, it doesn't matter, I don't care, I just want to make it through the day. And you got to stop, or you have to stop by like Hardee's or McDonald's or something like that, and like get some breakfast, like a breakfast sandwich on the way in, because you didn't eat the night before. Because guess what? Most of the time when we're in active addiction, we don't eat because we want to have an empty stomach so that we can maximize the amount of alcohol absorption in our stomach, because we want it empty. So you haven't eaten anything, and you passed out the night before because you got blackout drunk and you never ate the whole entire day, and you wake up that morning and you are like starving hungry. So now you got to stop by McDonald's, get yourself some breakfast. You just spent $40 at the gas station picking up your little care package. And then, to make it all worse, on the way home from work, you have to stop by the gas station and pick up a 12-pack of beer because, God forbid, you go home and not drink that night and get the rest of that hangover to go away with that 12-pack of beer, because it works. So already at this point, you spent $100 that day just trying to make it through the day because you were hungover again. And you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff anymore after you get sober. You know, you find yourself stopping by the gas station and being like, man, I'm not about to buy a $3 soda. I'm saving my money. But when we're in active addiction, you know, we'll spend all of our money. We don't care. You know, we're living day by day, minute by minute when we're in active addiction. All we're doing is we're surviving is all we're doing. We're not living. And that's the point of today's video. Let's live, guys. Let's live our best lives. The past is in the past. The future isn't even here yet, but we are living right now. And today, in this moment, let's stay sober today. Let's not drink today, guys. It's a decision. And we get to make that decision every single day. Are we going to drink or are we going to stay sober? And today, let's stay sober today. If you're brand new to sobriety and you're living it minute by minute, every 30 minutes or hour by hour, however you have to do it, let's stay sober. In this minute, this hour, or just for today. Let's not worry about yesterday, and let's not worry about tomorrow, just today, guys. Because that's all we got is right now. So anyway, with that said, I'm going to go ahead and hop off of here. But like I said, one of the best things about sobriety is not worrying about hangovers anymore. Because golly, they used to be horrible for me. And I'm so glad I don't have to deal with that anymore. But anyway, guys, I'm going to go ahead and hop off of here. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And until tomorrow, I will see you guys then. I love you guys so much. Bye-bye.